I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Linn-Mar Community School District. We want to thank everybody that's attending. We appreciate the cabinet being here this evening. We need to determine a quorum, please.
Director Lau Lancaster.
Here.
Director Maury.
Here.
Director Thomas.
Here.
Director Walker.
Here.
Director Wall.
Here.
Director Foss. President Buckles.
Here.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Rachel, second by Melissa to adopt the agenda as presented. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'll read a proclamation in honor of National Teachers Appreciation Day week, which is May 6th through the 10th. So whereas May 6th through May 10th has been declared as Teacher Appreciation Week by the President of the United States, and whereas teachers are patient, hardworking, dedicated, and educated professionals that mold the lives of all students in a positive direction through guidance and education to inspire learning, unlock potential, empower achievement. And whereas teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling students and families, and providing their time and talents to the community by educating its students. And whereas teachers work together as teams with other educational leaders, with students, and with Linn-Mar administrators to build a strong curriculum and support system for the students and families of the Linn-Mar Community School District to ensure educational success for all four. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Linn-Mar Community School District proclaims May 6th through the 10th, 2024 as Teacher Appreciation Week, and be it also proclaimed that the Linn-Mar Board of Directors encourages all members of the Linn-Mar community to express their appreciation for the dedication and service that Linn-Mar teachers offer daily to the educational and personal success of all students. So, thank you. Okay. Jas wants to speak, right? James Thatcher. Once again, just at this time, just want you to speak in the microphone, tell us who you are, and we will acknowledge comments, but we won't comment. And just do us a favor, keep them on a kind of cordial manner, if you would, please. Thank you.
James Thatcher, Linn-Mar's resident since 1990. I was here at the last meeting and I saw Channel 2 News where y'all blamed the state for financial woes. 2 years ago with Shannon Bisgard, this board announced financial difficulties with a 2-year plan, which included layoffs. The board's financial management left Linn-Mar with financial shortages long prior to any state actions. Last meeting, Katie, you asked, why do we pay other school districts money from our budget to educate our kids? What would be a reason other than I want to go to another school? Having witnessed this board's actions over the last couple of years, here's my answer. Take a look at history. It's because the Linn-Mar board actions hurt and lost the trust of a significant number of parents. April 25, 2022, the board disregarded the concerns of over 100 parents and many more that couldn't attend. Plus, they didn't tell the public the truth. Before state legislative actions in 2022, hurting parents immediately moved their kids out of Linn-Mar. I recall one hurting parent begging this board to let their kid out of Linn-Mar before the fall of 2022. Some hurt parents moved to Alburnett and Marion public schools. Some hurt parents took on homeschooling. Why would hurt parents take on the extra hassle to transport their kids to another public school district? Why take on the major hassle to homeschool? Why would they take their kids away from their friends? I say look in the mirror, take a look at history. Some hurt parents took legal actions against Linn-Mar, and as far as I know, Linn-Mar lost or settled out of court every legal action, and that costs money. Hurt and ignored parents asked the state for help. Though it took a year or more, the state did adopt legislation which overruled Linn-Mar's 2022 board actions. State actions were a consequence of poor public service by this board. The last Linn-Mar board meeting, Laura, you stated 2024 numbers, the top 8 districts in the state of Iowa had a negative net open enrollment. Doesn't speak to the causes or why. Is it a trend? I'd bet you a Pepsi that those 8 school board districts did the same thing to their parents, much the same way this board hurt their parents. The reason the board didn't officially ask parents why they left, for me, is explained with a quote from the movie A Few Good Men. I'm not sure you can handle the truth. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, Vanessa Reno, parent. I'm here because I'm excited about Teacher Appreciation Week. So, happy Teacher Appreciation Week to our amazing educators at Linn-Mar. This week offers opportunity for reflection and appreciation of the teachers who have made a personal impact on us when we were students and for our children and all youth. However, this week is certainly not the only time of year we are grateful for the educators in our lives. This is a recognition many people feel should be exemplified day in and day out with each passing school year. I am grateful for the many ingenious avenues educators have taken to help my children accomplish academic goals, whether it be through accountability, creative techniques, or an encouraging word. I have ample respect for the progress made as you assist each student in striving to be the best they can be. One thing several teachers have done over the years for my children is hold space. You hold space by listening to understand. Students know when an adult cares by the demonstration of patience, kindness, and providing an inclusive environment. What a valuable skill to teach through your example. Thank you, teachers. Each teacher has the ability to make a positive impact on multiple students every year. Not only is this something you accomplish, but there is evidence in the ripple effect as Linn-Mar students are becoming successful adults, in turn making a difference for others. This month, please know all support staff from every department in the Linn-Mar district has my appreciation as each department plays a role in the success of each student. I'd ask others to please hold space for our educators, admin, and support staff as they are neighbors of ours and they deserve to be heard, respected, and shown kindness. My hope is that every educator and supporting staff member know that from your absolute best days to your most challenging, you are making a difference in a child's life. The impact can last a lifetime, and you are appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, that's all we have. Thank you. Okay, we had a board visit at Bowman Woods. Appreciate everybody that was able to attend. Do we have a report?
We did a lot of different things, which was lovely. We got to have time alone with faculty and staff, but also with the kids. That's always a high point. And then see the kids, how they interacted with their teachers and leaders, and also some of the specials along the way. So that was very interesting to me to be there.
I know for me, I really appreciated them describing how they use the wit and wisdom curriculum, and just listening to how they've, been able to make that such a engaging and just bring the kids in to engage with the content. And like, I have a third grader, and there are days where he's not thrilled about like wit and wisdom, and it's, every kid's different, but it's good to hear that, like, we have such engaged teachers who are like making this work for them, or at least for the bulk of the kids. He'll come around, I'm sure, but so.
I enjoyed hearing about the collaboration during the staff and faculty time, where they were talking about teacher teams from other buildings coming and observing, and how that unique style of PD is working. And I just would love to hear more examples of that in the future. And hearing from the staff directly how helpful that PD is, and asking for more. I think the best way to provide PD is to ask and listen to our staff. So I thought that was really good. And I enjoyed seeing all the kindergartners' box creations. So.
I thought it was interesting to be able to, we got to observe an Alice drill, and I have never witnessed one before. We get the emails as parents and we hear about it as board members, but I've never seen how that works. So it's really incredible to think that, I don't know how many kids are in an elementary school building, 400-ish more. And they're, like they know what they're doing and they're going out there and they're being, I would be horrified to have to try to corral 400 elementary school kids, but they are really good. So that was nice. And then it was nice during our kind of dialogue with our staff to hear them talk a little bit about like how the theme of Bowman, like how that's actually, what that actually looks like, you know what I mean, in terms of their day-to-day. So that was interesting, and yeah, always kind of cool to get to see the kids, building things and working together. So that was a good time.
If I can piggyback just really quick, I appreciated that the Alice drill included, though, follow-up conversations in the classroom so that they could have an opportunity to talk about what they just experienced, why they're experiencing it, and then debrief it. It wasn't just it was successful or not successful, as what does this mean and how did you feel? So as somebody watching this, I felt better that there was an opportunity to say, hey, what if you were scared? What if you were lonely? What if you were totally clueless and you just followed some, what is your feeling and how did you experience it? Because there's a lot of feels with that kind of drill. So I appreciate it. Thank you for noticing that.
I appreciated hearing the conversations around the theme school with the innovation and how not only are they implementing that throughout their curriculum, but then the conversations about how the changes to the AEAs are going to potentially impact that, and what of the supplies from the innovative changes to the, not changes to the curriculum, but the innovation that they're doing within the curriculum. Some of those supplies are coming from the AEA, and some of those supplies are being purchased out of pocket from the teachers, and some of those are coming from the classroom. And so how that will all evolve, and will more of that fall now onto the teachers, because they want to continue to innovate and they want to continue to do more of these hands-on activities. But what will the impact of all this be? And so we'll have to pay close attention to that as we move forward, to ensure that these teachers that are working really hard to make sure that they can continue to help these young brains innovate and learn how to come up with new ideas, can continue to do that in a different environment.
And just one last, and the PTOs as well, like understanding the critical role that the PTOs are playing to support these curriculum programs. That's another thing that I think the burden and how much they're doing and the money that they're going to raise, and each PTO for each school being different. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who participates in PTO programs. We know it's a volunteer commitment. It's a big time-intensive commitment. And in some places, they're really doing a lot of heavy lifting. And I know we all know that, but to take time to say it amongst everything else that they're doing.
Thanks for the input. I was not able to attend, so I appreciate it. Okay, 502, School Improvement Advisory Committee. Nathan has a sheet on the table. Rachel, Katie, Britt.
It's been a few years since I was on SIAC, so it was nice to get back and join that committee. We looked at past data and compared it. The request was to look at last year's data and where they're at this year. We looked at winter data to see if we were on track for meeting our district goal of an increase of 3% in year one. And we had really good conversation. We were split into teams, and I will say that, there's a lot of good things happening, and then in the mathematics, it shows that as a district, and 5 of the buildings we looked at are all on track to have already met that 3% increase over last year. Some have already surpassed it, so that's good in math. There are a couple that have fallen behind, and hopefully their spring scores will show that improvement. Literacy wasn't. I would say I'm a little more concerned about literacy with where we're at, but there was really good conversation about what we do with this data. And we had staff members on present that talked about, Novak has seen incredible growth in both literacy and math over the last year, and there was someone there that was actually able to say, well, they brought back their intervention block. They have a specific time, and I know we've heard about that at the elementaries, asking for that block back, and it seems to be working at Novak. So I know the group, that was one of our recommendations, or one of the committee recommendations, was to really look at interventions and how that's done and dedicating that time.
I think that it was lots of different voices, and I think that was important. It was educators, it was board members, but one of my favorite people there was a high school student. And to feel, one, that she felt that she was well-versed, well-educated, and able to speak. And a lot of times we speak about the students, and she'd say, and she would raise her hands like, that's not what I'm experiencing. And she would speak as a student. And I just thought how valuable that was to get that voice. I'm not sure, but it would be fun to do that at an elementary level, middle school level, just so we stop talking about them, but talk with. Anyway, that was just she was very articulate, by the way, and hats off to her willingness to participate. But it was very informative, and I look forward to continuing on this committee.
So I was not able to attend, but I just have a quick question based upon what Nathan had sent us and what you were just talking about there. Was there a reason that they changed how they did intervention, like took away that specific time?
Remember a couple years ago, they rearranged the schedule and they put more time into specials, and I don't remember why they did it, but that's what they did.
So there had been a specific intervention time. Is that kind of like RTI at the high school? Is that the idea behind it? Okay, so then that's not built into the schedule anymore. And then is the feeling that bringing that back is, directly correlated to the growth that was seen over at Novak? I mean, I know that that's hard to kind of...
It was one person from the
Okay.
building, but when we asked, that was,
Like what changed, and that was kind of...
what are you guys doing that might be
Okay.
different? And she called out that we have a specific time dedicated to intervention,
Right.
as opposed to just trying to fit it in.
Okay. How is it done now, Nathan? How is intervention done now at those other schools?
Bob can probably talk better about that than I can.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. The reason that the last 2 years we went to 60-minute essentials times at the elementary was, number one, we're transitioning out of our COVID phase into face-to-face instruction, and we also had 2 new curriculums, basically K-8, looking at those things, and that time was expanded to give teachers a 60-minute block in their professional learning community for those things. Right now, intervention is not necessarily scheduled as far as like master schedule. Like in our math block right now, our schedule is 75 minutes. An illustrative math lesson takes about 60. So with the bridges work that we started, that's 15 minutes tacked onto that would be perfect time for teacher to do math intervention. We've really examined this. We've weighed it with principals, and we've had multiple discussions about what's the sweet spot for this. I believe Carla has communicated with everyone that we're going to move back to 50-minute essentials. That way we can increase time, number one, for that intervention block, and to be able to make sure that our students that have IEPs, we can really guarantee an SDI time for them that's not conflicting with core instruction. And when you look at our instructional time allotments at the elementary, our day is packed. It's really pretty dense, and we being elementary principals, director Carla Reese, we spent a great deal of time examining this, and we felt this was the move now after 2 years of having that 60-minute essentials. I think it's going to pay great dividends. Our schedules are going to be more consistent than they've ever been at the elementary starting next year, and I think the work that the principals and Carla did is just outstanding. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the result of that work as it impacts scores next year.
Awesome, thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Superintendent Courtmeyer will give her updates.
Thank you. So just as far as the exhibit tonight, district honors and highlights, we've got a couple of, we've got one teacher highlight here. Congratulations to Kathleen Kelly, Linn-Mar High School English teacher, for being honored by Kelsey Lane, a Linn-Mar graduate, and she was featured on KCRG. Our girls soccer team recently beat West High, putting their season record at 9-3. I'm sure there's a few games that have happened since then, so that might be a little bit old news there. Student highlight, kudos to Addie Grayland, a junior at Linn-Mar, for the work she's doing to raise awareness of heart disease. Abby was featured on KGAN Iowa News Now as they interviewed the co-chair of the American Heart Association's Quarter Heart Walk, being hosted at Kinnick Stadium on May 4th, so that was just 2 days ago. We had a Special Olympics highlight at Lynn Grove here recently. Kudos to the students that participated in the Day of Play, aka Junior Special Olympics at Lynn Grove on April 30th. Special Olympics Young Athletes is a sports and play program for children with and without special education services ages 2 through 7. We also had an honor with our Soda and Tri kiddos. Congratulations to all of the Linn-Mar School Soda and Tri students that were honored at the Marion Rotaries Club's 32nd annual celebration luncheon on April 30th. This annual event promotes student leadership and healthy lifestyles. I want to thank President Buckholz for reading the proclamation in honor of National Teacher Appreciation Week just a bit ago. Our teachers deserve this recognition for all that they do each and every day for our students, families, and one another. Our profession is a calling, and they make us proud each and every day. We were recently notified that we have been awarded a safety grant for $50,000 per building. We will be bringing this to the board during the May 20th meeting. As a reminder, assessments were done by the state as part of this process. Districts were required to utilize the assessment information when making decisions about safety improvements. We will share more information during the next board meeting. We would also like to take the time to acknowledge our awareness of House File 2586, also as it relates to safety. This is an act relating to school security, including the use of school security personnel by school districts and authorizing school employees to be issued professional permits to carry weapons. The law passed this session requires districts with 8,000 or more students to have at least one private school security officer or school resource officer at schools that are regularly attended by grades 9 through 12. If a district has less than 8,000 students, it's encouraged but not required. Our enrollment is below the 8,000 student threshold in this law, so it has no bearing on our decision in our district. However, we plan to continue with the strong support from our on-site school resource officer and our local law enforcement. Our district will not move forward with any steps that will allow our district staff to be armed, given that we employ a school resource officer and have partnered with the City of Marion for years to employ him and plan to continue to do so. And we have emergency personnel readily available to us in the community, including the local police departments, and the Sheriff's Office. Segueing now to the Learning Resource Building, this building that we're in, and the remodel. As discussed in an earlier board meeting, the LRC will be undergoing a remodel beginning June 3rd upon the board's approval of the bid later in the meeting. The LRC will be used to expand space for the high school, Compass, Atlas, and Venture programs. LRC staff will be housed in temporary locations until the new administrative building is open. This includes us being located either at Boulder Peak or Hazel Point through the occupancy until the new building is ready. And just as a reminder, this is part of an overall bigger facilities plan that the board approved in April of 2022 to create and expand and update our spaces for our high school students. Later on the agenda, you'll have a lot of student open enrollments to be approved. We're thrilled that we have so many students on our list for students coming into the district. In the personnel report, the administration is recommending Jay Lehman as the new principal at Bowman Woods beginning July 1, pending board approval later in the meeting. Jay has served the district since the 2011-2012 school year in a variety of capacities. Most recently has served as the Associate Athletic Director at Linn-Mar High School. Prior to that, Jay served as the Activities Director at Oak Ridge, a PE and health teacher, the same building, a PE teacher at Bowman Woods, and the school administrative manager at Bowman Woods. We will miss Tina March immensely and appreciate her 35 years of service to the school district. An update on the ongoing facilities project with the performance venue. No real change here. There's some value engineering that's occurred. There was a meeting on Monday and new goals have been set. There's an exiting document that's been sent to the city of Marion for full documentation of the construction egress. Site demolition has continued, and submittals have been coming in and reviewed. The admin building, we talked just a little bit about there a little bit ago. There's a long lead time on that switchboard. We're estimating our occupancy there to be September, in the fall, September 24th. And then they're just in a lot of phases, phase 1 of painting, MEP finish, 2 drywall hangings, weather barriers, curtain wall framing, and install has started. With the high school extension, the bids were open. I'm going to fail at sharing the name. John, maybe you can help me. Unzitig is the lowest bidder that will be looked at later. Unzitig. Okay, thank you. And as far as the high school indoor athletics or activities center, there's a planning benchmarking trip for June 6th to visit sites for inspiration. John spearheading that, and programming meetings will occur in June then with that stakeholder group that we pulled together. Some upcoming events. Senior Recognition Night is also occurring tonight at 7 o'clock at the Linn-Mar High School Auditorium. We have a leadership meeting this week. The Lions Volunteer Awards will be here in this room at 5:15 on Wednesday evening. And then we have prom coming up this weekend. This evening.
Just a real quick, kind of off the presses award, the Linn-Mar girls track team won the MVC conference late Friday. So I'm sure they'll come here and be recognized in the future, but that's kind of a neat, kind of a special, 2 years in a row for them, so it's kind of special. So.
Congratulations to the girls.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, so the $50,000 grants per building.
Yep.
So that's for safety purposes.
Correct.
And could you repeat again, like, where that money is coming from?
Yep, it's from the Department of Homeland Security. And if
Okay.
you ask too
So
many
that
more
federal.
questions, I'm going to have to lean on John and Jerry and Melissa here. But we will give a full report ahead of that on
Okay.
the May 20th meeting so that you all can feel informed about that.
It was something that was awarded over a year ago, but it took this long to apply for it and get qualified for it. So, good questions.
So, yeah, I look forward to hearing more about that and also just understanding how that affects some of the other items that we've budgeted for. So we will cover that at the next meeting. So thank you for that. And also, are these, the open enrollment list, are these new open enrollment lists?
Absolutely.
So they're not people
Correct.
who open enrolled like last
Nope.
year?
They're all new.
So this is all,
Upcoming and 65 plus people on that list.
Once you're approved, you don't have to apply every year.
okay. Thank you for clarifying. I wanted to understand whether this was like reauthorizing or if these are new.
Brand new.
Okay, thank
Very
you.
good.
You're welcome.
Good question.
Heavy on the kindergartners. Did you
Good
see
question.
that? Heavy on the
41 of them.
kindergartners.
And normally we have a
41
list of people who
kindergartners.
open enroll out, right?
No, we do not do that. We do not share that any further.
Because-
any
Oh,
Because-
that would be privacy.
Well,
we don't have-
because we actually
used it.
don't know that.
We don't have to
We
approve
don't
it
have to approve it
anymore.
anymore.
Right.
You don't, it used to be different.
Yeah.
It used to be different, and so you would have to apply to enroll, you'd have to apply to the, if I was a Linn-Mar student and I wanted to go to Cedar Rapids,
Yeah.
I'd have to apply. You guys would have to let me out.
Okay.
And so that law changed a couple of years ago, and so now we just do the students enrolling in.
We don't know that until they're gone. Sorry.
There used to be
say.
a deadline too.
There are some new legislative requirements coming around open enrollment again. That will take effect next year. So don't learn the rules too much right now because they're about to change again.
So everything I just said, just totally ignore that.
What? Okay.
All good questions.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Okay.
hearing me.
Unfinished business, approval of resolution directing sale of bonds. Are we going to have Matt on
I just saw.
5? There he is. Hi, Matt.
Matt, can you hear us?
Hi, Matt.
Boy, that is a long way away. Hang on, Matt, we can't quite hear you yet. Oh, I know why you can't hear me. Matt, can we hear you? Can you hear us now?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, gotcha.
All good.
All right. All right, are you ready for this part of the agenda?
Yes.
We are.
All right, then let me get to that screen, just a moment. And I don't know if John might have copied this for you as well, but if not, that's all right, because I'm going to just share my screen and we'll go over this.
We actually have it in front of us too. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to go through each page. I'll go through it, relatively quickly. I know you have other things on your agenda, but I'll make sure to give you time for questions as well. I did go over it with John earlier this afternoon, so I'm pretty confident that he understands what happened, the process, et cetera. But up here in the heading of the report of sale, we have, originally we were asking the bidders to bid on $20,215,000 of bonds, and that's what everything on this page is in reference to, with the exception of this small rectangle that's here. So when you look at the various bids, those are pertinent to that $20.2 million amount. Once we took the bids and had those in hand, and also after I had a discussion with John about the project cost and some of the funding sources, et cetera, we were able to reduce the size of the borrowing to $16,365,000, which I'll show you on another page how that came about. Also in that heading, you see we did have to get a rating from Standard & Poor's, which is typical when we go through this process versus the private placement process that we attempted previously. So S&P did interview your staff about a month ago or so, and they've been through that many times. S&P has with Linn-Mar. They came back and assigned the A+ rating to your sales tax bond issuances. That's about the highest that most schools in Iowa would get for sales tax. You would probably have a higher rating for your general obligation bond, but sales tax, most schools typically don't get much above A+. You also see in that heading S&P insured AA rated. So the bidders had the option, which is unfortunately out of our control and out of your control. There's two big insurance companies that will insure bond issuances, and they just provide bond insurance quotes in the morning to the marketplace for issuances all over the country, and it's up to the underwriter, the bidder, to determine if they want to use that insurance. Actually, all of the bidders that would bid today on your issue except one would have used that insurance. And what they do is they pay a premium to that insurance company, and then they get to use the insurance company's rating. So the insurance company in this case is Build America Mutual. That's what you see here as BAM. And the rating for BAM is AA. So that's 2 notches above the school district's A+ rating. So they pay a relatively minor, although you may disagree with that, insurance premium to that insurance company, and then they get to use the higher rating, which in theory at least buys down the interest rates to lower interest rates with the higher rating. Looking at the bids themselves, there were actually 8 bids, which is a lot of bids for sales tax bonds. We just had a relatively similar issuance at Pleasant Valley Schools about a month ago, and they had 7, and that was a lot at that time. We would typically expect to see maybe 3 to 5 for sales tax, and if you were selling GO bonds, if it was Linn-Mar, you might see 10 to 15 bids if it was general obligation bonds. But you got 8. Again, very, very nice bids, a lot of bids. We're looking at this true interest rate that is in the bottom right-hand corner of each one of the bidder sections. In the case of the winning bidder, 3.8322. So that is the number we look to determine who the winner is. What that number is, although it's nice to just think about it as an average interest rate, that is not what it is. It's actually weighting the rates more heavily for the longer term interest rates that you pay, and weighting them less heavily for the shorter term interest rates, because of course the longer term interest rates are more important since you're going to pay those for a longer period of time. But it also includes any premium or discount, and in this case today a premium, that the bidder is paying, and their fee as well. That's all wrapped into that number. So some bank could have charged you a very high fee and very low interest rates. Someone else could charge you a very low fee and very high interest rates. And theoretically, mathematically, those two things could be equal, depending on exactly what rates and what fees they were charging. So this is weighting all of that out. Oh, was there a question? I'm sorry.
Nope, we're good.
Nope. Okay. So if we compare that bid, 3.832, to the second place bid, 3.838, you can see we're going to the thousands place to determine who the winner is. And actually, excuse me, actually even going to the third and the fourth place bids, they're still very, very close within the hundredths place to determine who the winner is. So these are very, very close bids, what we would call tight bids. It tells us that this is the market today when we see that there are so many bids and they're so close together. If you look at the worst bid at the bottom, JP Morgan Securities, although they were also the bidder, if you remember, on your private placement, but that was JP Morgan Bank, that was JP Morgan Chase. That's a different entity. That's the actual bank side of the brokerage. And they are one of the more aggressive bidders generally when we have private placements. But they were the farthest out at 4.08 in bidding today. The low bid today, Jeffries, which you may or may not have heard of. They're also a big market maker in stocks and equities, so you might have heard about them from that aspect. The second place bidder, that's Bank of Oklahoma. You probably have not heard of Bank of Oklahoma, but they're a big bidder in Iowa for some reason on municipal bonds. So the low bid, 3.832. If we go to the second page of that packet, this is just my Excel version of all of this. This is the version that you have seen before in a little bit different perspective. This is including everything. So it's not just today. This includes what we think might happen next year. It's the whole entire overall funding of this project. So on the right side of the page, you see the amortization schedule. So the principal will go out through 2037. You see the interest rates assigned, semi-annual principal and interest payments, or excuse me, semi-annual interest payments, annual principal payments, just like most bonds. To the right of that blue dashed line that goes up and down the middle of the page, the first number along the right side of that is 5.59 million. That column is reflecting the existing sales tax bond payments that you already have. So we, of course, have to take that into account when we size or structure the new bond to make sure that there's enough sales tax revenue to not only fund the old bonds, but also the new bond, and to leave some cushion. We do need to leave what we call coverage. And you agreed at the last time you issued bonds, when we started going out a little bit longer term, now that the tax goes out for quite a long ways, that we would not issue additional debt unless the district could prove that you had at least 1.25 times coverage. So what that means is that you have at least enough money coming in from the sales tax to show that you have $1.25 coming in for every dollar that you owe going out to make principal and interest payments. So that leaves us always with 25 cents out of every $1.25 for, basically it's there as a safety measure really in case your revenue were to drop, but as that's not really expected to happen significantly at least, what really happens is that you go out and spend that money. You spend it for buses and technology, maintenance, other projects that you're doing that you're just paying cash for, all of that type of stuff. But looking to the left side of the page, the two smaller boxes, if you look at the bottom box, the smaller of the boxes, that is showing us the estimated sources of funds. So where is all the money coming from? Well, you're issuing $16,365,000 of principal today. The winning bidder is paying you, and I'll try to show you and explain this on a different page in just a moment, but they're paying you a premium of $504,000. We think you'll earn around $150,000 in interest while this bond money sits in the bank during construction, and maybe more than that, depending on how long the bonds sit there and how long the proceeds sit there and what interest rate you're earning. And then we also expect that next year you're going to come back and issue around $10 million of sales tax to fund the remaining part of the project. And things may change between now and then. You may only need to issue 8 million or 7 million, or you might issue 11 million. We'll feel that out as your project unfolds and as you know much more about the actual costs instead of really just estimated costs. But then it's also estimated that you probably will contribute about $4 million out of your pocket, either from sales tax and or PEPAL surplus monies that you just are accumulating, and or surplus bond proceeds from last year's bond issuance. So $4 million in cash. That's a big reason also why you aren't issuing as much principal today, which is a good thing because it's saving you lots of interest. The less principal you need to issue, the less interest and less fees you pay as well. So then looking at the top left box, the bigger one, the bottom one was where's all the money coming from, and the top one is what's all this money being used for. Well, you see, first of all, the bottom half of that top box, you see that big number for the reserve fund. This is one of the things that we possibly could have done without had the private placement process worked. As, of course, we know it was not successful, and it's working out to your benefit that it wasn't, so that's fine. But you are going to set aside a reserve fund, basically a safety net, $1,636,500. That will go within your sales tax fund, but in a special fund that's just called the reserve fund. You can earn interest on it, and you can spend the interest, but you can't touch that $1.6 million until these bonds are paid off. And then once the bonds are paid off, or you can use it to make the last payment as well, then that money becomes available to you again. The underwriting cost that you see, $128,599, that's the fee that the winning bidder factored in. So that amount was factored into the bid itself and was one of the determinants to decide who was the winning bid. That does include the bond insurance, which I'll show you on a different page. And that amount was roughly half of what it could have been, or what I expected it might have been. So that was another positive thing, although I know you look at that number and say it's a pretty darn big number, which it is. It actually, in many cases, would have been about twice what it is. So the bidder was very aggressive with their fee. Again, they can choose to use low or high fees or low or high interest rates, and the combination of those things together is what they're doing to put their total bid together in order to try to win. And then the cost of issuance, that would be all of the other professional services that are assisting, which would be your bond attorney, Allers & Cooney, Piper Sandler, the company I work for, Standard & Poor's, United Missouri Bank, all of those different entities that are helping through that process. And then, of course, at the top, the big part, you're funding what we believe is going to be around a $25 million project. I think your bid came in around $25.5 million. You're hoping to reduce that cost by about $500,000 in one way or another. And then other costs, which would be architects, furniture, fixtures, equipment, things like that, roughly $4 million. So together, the total project is somewhere around $29 million total, and that's then what these sources of uses at the bottom are funding overall. If we go to the next couple pages then, these are just now clean versions of only what happened today. So it does not include estimates about next year. It doesn't include the bigger overall project. It's just showing the result from today's issuance. So here you see that $16.365 million of principal, the premium that's generated, the cost of issuance, the underwriter's discount, the reserve fund. What you can spend from today only is the $14,949,405.80 plus any interest that may be earned as the funds sit in the bank. In the little bottom section, you can see that insurance premium was $27,002. Now, while the underwriter pays it, what that means is that technically they pay it. They actually send the wire, but of course you're paying it. All of these funds are coming from the school district's bonds, so therefore it's all coming out of your pocket ultimately, but it does technically get paid by the underwriter because they wire the premium to them on the day of closing. The next page is just a clean version of today's debt service. So again, it doesn't have the existing debt. It doesn't have the coverage calculations, none of that stuff. It's just basically this is for John to use in future budget seasons when you guys are doing your budget. And then we come to page 5 of the packet. It says page 3 in the top right-hand corner. But here's where you can see what the market really is. The interest rates that are assigned, although this may not sound logical to many of you, and it certainly doesn't sound logical to most rational people, but it's the way this system works. The interest rate, which we also call the coupon, is not necessarily the market. What is the market is the yield. So in this case, the bidder is basically requesting the district pay slightly higher interest rates, but they're paying you a premium to do it. And when that happens, if you just concentrate on the very first maturity, and for those of you that aren't really into numbers, you don't have to understand this. It's fine if you fall asleep or whatever. It is what it is. But just to help try to explain it, whoever owns the first maturities, which is $1,125,000 in principal, the district is going to pay them 5% interest, but they're not earning 5%. They're only earning 3.71. That's the yield. The reason that they're not earning 5%, even though you're giving them a 5% payment, is that they're paying you more upfront than they're going to get back in principal. So we move the decimal place over 1. They're paying you $1,013.40 for each $1,000 principal amount. But next July 1, when you pay them back, you're only going to pay them back $1,000 because that's just the way the municipal bonds work. The municipality pays back in $1,000 increments. So that extra $13.40 times all of the bond principal is what's generating this premium. And there were premiums on all of the maturities, so that in the right side of the page, you see the total premium generated $504,000. So you're in effect getting the money up front, the overage that you're paying them by paying them 4% or 5%. But in most cases, not all, but in most cases, that's actually more beneficial because you're getting that money up front to help you build something today at today's construction costs, and then you may pay them the extra interest over time. But it's somewhat of a wash. I'm not going to tell you it's a complete wash, but it's similar to a wash. You get the money up front, you pay them more in interest over time, but you got that extra money up front to help build something. And quite frequently, I know you've already taken your bids now, but in many, many cases, these construction projects come in over budget or over bid or over expectations, that is, of the architect, for example. So having that premium is quite often very, very beneficial. Right here in this red towards the bottom, this is where I mentioned earlier that underwriter's discount might have been close to twice what it really is. This, again, you can move the decimal place over. What they're charging, the underwriter's discount, $7.85 per $1,000 bond, and that might routinely be closer to $15. Earlier this spring, it was actually even up close to $20. So this $7.85 is a very good level for underwriter's discount to be paying for that. Now, one thing I did fail to mention, I'll go back to this page. Where this red dashed line is, that's going across the middle of this page, that's the call date of the bonds. So that's July 1 of 2030. That means that once we get to July of 2030, the school board has a few options. One, if interest rates are low enough to mathematically make it feasible to refinance the rest of the bonds, you could do it at that time. And Linn-Mar has kind of famously, historically done that with all of your debt before. You just did all of that. About 2 and 3 years ago, you basically refinanced all of the debt you had kind of just before JT left. So that will be, again, an option for you in 2030 or beyond. So it's July of 2030 or any day after that with 30 days notice. So you could refinance the debt, but you could also just start to pay it off. If you had an extra $5,000, you could pay it off in $5,000 increments. You're not probably going to waste your time doing that, but you could pay it off if you had an extra 100,000 or 500,000 or million. That would be a much more meaningful way to apply those funds and just stop paying interest altogether. And you can end up saving significant amounts of interest by doing that. And of course, the third option is to do nothing. If interest rates haven't really decreased and it's not feasible to refinance, and you still have lots of other projects that you'd prefer to fund rather than use that money to pay off debt, you just keep making the payments as scheduled. So you don't have to do anything, but you do start to have those options once you get to that call date. And then the last page of the packet is the timeline. So here we are at May 6th. Of course, we opened the bids at 1 o'clock. The board is meeting now at 5. The only thing you're doing tonight technically is awarding to the low bidder, which we'll do in just a moment, assuming the board agrees to do that. At your next meeting, May 20th, there will be several different resolutions that your attorney will have prepared for you by that time. They're the same resolutions that you do every time you issue bonds. So for those of you that have been on the board for a while, it will look and sound and feel very, very familiar. Same process. The board just has to approve those things on May 20th, and then the transaction will close on June 5th. So the monies will be wired to the bank of your choosing on June 5th. Now that's everything except for what you already received today, which is called the good faith deposit, kind of like earnest money when you buy a home. And the low bidder did already wire to that bank $202,150. So that'll be deducted off what they owe you when the transaction closes in early June. But that money is already in the bank, and you could begin to use that to pay architect's fees or other project costs, etc. So I'll stop talking for a second and see if any of you board members have questions about any of these worksheets that we looked through, the process itself. Oh, one other thing, just real quick, if you don't remember. When we were trying to do the private placement, the rates you were seeing at that time, which we would compare to this 383 number, you had a 4.35% rate which was with a non-call, meaning you could not have paid the bonds off early. And then there was a 4.63 proposal from Chase also, when you could have called the bonds in 2029, and a 4.58% interest rate where you could have called the bonds beginning in 2031. So clearly, today's result is significantly superior to what those proposals would have produced. Unfortunately, that did not work. But again, it's really kind of probably in hindsight worked to your advantage, because this is a much better result. So any questions the board has before we go to the resolution?
So in looking at the winning bidder, you said that you're resizing the bond. So are we actually going with the 3.8435 interest rate?
Yeah, that's correct. So the 3.832, that's related to the bigger $20.2 million amount. And the insurance premium was also slightly higher at that level. So once we reduced the size to 16,365, and we repositioned some of the principal to make sure that there wasn't one year that exceeded that 1.25 times coverage, etc. Once we made all those adjustments, then the true interest rate worked out to be 3.8435. So this is the real result. This is the result of the bidding. But then after we make those adjustments, then it falls to this what you see in this rectangle here. Excuse me.
Where can we find the 16,365? I'm seeing the purchase price listed on here is the 16,740, and I'm just trying to figure out where the.
I think that's what the premium
it's
included.
in several places. If you look on the second page, right here, you can see it's at the bottom of the total principal amount. Also on the third page, it's a little bit cleaner looking. That's where you see the par amount of the bonds, 13,365.
So what does the 16,740, 880, what does that include?
That's with the premium
Yep.
that they're paying us.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
Yep. Yeah, if you look on this page 5 of the packet, which is the one that had the yields on it, that's the principal amount plus the premium, which is that $504,000, minus the underwriter's discount or minus their fee. So that is what comes out to be that 16,748.80. So that's the actual amount that they're going to pay you, minus the $200,000 that you get today from the good faith deposit. So the rest of it, roughly 16.5 million, that's what will be wired to you on June 5th. Does that make sense?
Good question.
I have a question about the resizing down to that
Yep.
16 number. And then
Yes.
also, I note on, I've taken note that it says approximately 10 million additional issuance 2025. Does that mean another bond next year? And if so,
Yes.
so then we go through this whole process again with interest rates?
Yep, that is correct. And the reason why that's happening, you could have issued all of it today. That is possible. However, and you may or may not remember these discussions from, over time, when a municipality, doesn't be a school, city, county, whatever, when a municipality can issue $10 million or less in a calendar year, then that issuance of debt gets to be deemed what we call bank qualified, or BQ. And when that can happen, generally, you get lower interest rates. If you have to issue more than 10 million, the bonds are not bank qualified, and you generally pay slightly higher interest rates. And slightly higher depends on the day, but it's probably somewhere in the 20 to as much as maybe 50 basis points. That'd be on the high side. When we're talking about this many millions of dollars, that's a significant difference. But your project is big enough and is going to be completed quickly enough that you couldn't have broken it out between 10 million this year, 10 million next year, and then the 3 or 4 or 5 million the following year, whatever it needed to be, in order to get each one of them bank qualified. So we made the decision, and we talked to you earlier about this in the process, you're going to have to issue some of the debt not bank qualified. And you can see that right on this first page. It puts that note there. So the question was, do we issue more now or less now, and then the balance later? Well, you need your cash flow for the project itself needs quite a bit of money, most likely more than $10 million, just to get through the rest of this calendar year. We don't know that for sure because we don't know exactly how much it's going to rain and snow and all of that stuff, but that seemed reasonable. So the reason why you're going to issue a roughly 10 million next year, and probably not more than 10 million, although if you needed to, we could, but they would be not bank qualified, so that would kind of defeat the whole purpose of having broken this apart. But issuing that other 10 million next year, those bonds then will get to be at lower interest rates. Now, we don't know what the rates are going to be, so it's always a guess. No one knows for sure what is the right thing to do because we do not have a crystal ball. You could have issued 26 million today at these rates, and maybe next year interest rates could be way higher, and you'd be glad that you issued all the 26 million at today's rates. Or you could issue, if the rates stay the same, then next year they should be lower for the bank qualified part of it, and it would be to your advantage to have waited. You get lower total interest costs next year. But again, we can't guarantee that that's going to be a benefit because we don't know. We don't know and you don't know. We're always making that decision based off of kind of a gut feeling, or it's just sort of customary to do that as well, break it out, but it doesn't mean it has to happen that way.
Those are good questions, and I think Jonathan's quote this afternoon to me was, you never want to borrow more than you have to have, right?
I was going to say that.
In so many words.
We need to pay interest for a year on $10 million that we don't need until
You don't need to
a year
just
from
sitting
now.
in the bank and looking at it, yeah. So, you got,
Thank you for clarifying on that. And just to recap, when we met a month ago to talk about this, we had evaluated declining the private bond or doing this public sale. And if we would have, we made the more financially responsible, conservative, save us money. We made the save us money price or choice. And then also, when I think back to your budget presentation, and you had the columns, and it was like the general fund and the management fund and other, I'm still memorizing them all. But this is the save column, which is based on sales tax. That is a state law out to like 2050 something. Okay, all right.
Yep, 2050.
Awesome, thank
right
you.
on track.
Sorry, I
You're
want
right
to
on
say
track.
it all out loud, and so we're all
Yep,
on
just to
the same
clarify
page.
though, just to clarify real quickly, one of the things you just said, you are correct that now with hindsight, you made the right decision to reject the private placement and take some extra time and go down this path. But when you were making that decision, 2 months ago, it could have worked against you. There was risk involved at that time too, because imagine what if interest rates over the past 2 months had risen to 10%. I'm exaggerating, hopefully, but if they had risen to 10%, then even though you might have gotten 8 or 9 or 20 bids today, the fact is the interest rates would have been way higher and you would be paying more. So there was risk in the decision that you made 2 months ago, but it was a reasonable decision. And now that we have hindsight, you can clearly see that it was beneficial. You made the right decision. So you can pat yourself on the back for that, because there will be times when you don't make the right decision, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Laura has one more question.
And this has to do, and this might be a John question, so if we need to like end the call, okay. So I know we have so much capacity in the save, like to issue bonds for our save monies. Do you know like what capacity we have while issuing these? Like I'm thinking ahead to, when this is called in 2030 and paying it off, and so like where are we with that, and are we within a comparable capacity compared to other districts our size? You might not know the answer to that one, but
Yeah, well, I do not off the top of my head know the answer to how much could you borrow. We do calculate that, though, on a regular basis. We're constantly looking at that. I have up here Calma Sweetland.
Well, why don't we report that back in the
I
future?
knew it might be a John question.
Yeah.
No, but you are, one thing you can see right here in the far right side of this page where the coverage is. Remember, this is showing us how much money compared to your payment is actually coming in from sales tax. So this first year, we took it intentionally down as low as you could go to 1.25, because the more principal you pay off in 1 year versus paying it off in 2 years or 12 years or 15 years, the better, because you pay less interest. But after this year, there's significant coverage. You have almost 1.5 times the amount of money you need to make the payments that you have, which tells us that you have a significant capacity to borrow more. Now, you can't see what I'm looking at now, but for next year's borrowing of that roughly 10 million, and again, I'm making new guesses, so we don't know that it's totally accurate. But even then, even if you borrow the next 10 million, what it looks like next year is that this period right here that kind of leads out to that call date, that will be taken down close to that 1.25. But then after that, even where you see these higher numbers, even after that, with the 10 million, these numbers will probably be in the 1.6 to 1.65 times range, which means that after you get to 2030, you will have, once again, a huge capacity to borrow once again. Now, the structure for next year is not locked in any way. It's just the discussion right now. So we don't have to put all the principal up in the front years. But if the district believes that you will not need to borrow more from sales tax for X number of years, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, whatever that might be, then it will be advantageous to push as much principal into those first 2, 4, 6 years, whatever, because again, the sooner you pay the principal off, the less interest you pay. And the sooner you pay it off, the more capacity that's ready for the next time you need to borrow, whenever that might be. So your district has, I'm just going to look in my file here to see if I even have a maximum
And just to
calculation.
clarify, it's not because I'm wondering if we can borrow more so much as, like, I'm looking at.
Curious.
Right.
Well, I'm looking at from the responsible of trying to borrow as little as possible, and like, and can we start paying it off early? And so when I'm thinking about that, it's like, oh, let's acknowledge that we are significantly under, and we're not borrowing out of our gills.
Yeah, that's a true statement, what you just said. You are significantly under and you're not borrowing to the gills. So that's a fact.
And we always try to refinance or pay off earlier if we can. That's always our goals.
Thank you for being patient and humoring my
Okay,
questions.
so as we make a resolution, I want to make sure we're using the right numbers in our resolution. So the sale of $16,635,000 is our actual number, or the 16,640?
16,365.
16,365.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Got it, Barry.
But actually, I will paraphrase it so that none of you even have to read it. If you're ready for the resolution, what I'll do is I'll paraphrase it. It's acceptable for me to do that. One of the board members simply needs to so move what I say. Another board member can second that motion, and then it is required to have a roll call vote. So,
That'd be perfect.
are there
Thank you.
any other questions before we go to the resolution?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, then the resolution before you is directing the sale of $16,365,000 of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2024, to Jeffries LLC of New York, New York.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Laura. Questions?
There's a second part on our agenda, like there's a final number, do we need to
Now,
fill that
what's
in?
I'm sorry.
Like
There-
we're selling 16,365,000 in bonds for $16,740,850.80. Like, do we have to fill in this last?
That's what I see. No?
We don't need to fill that in.
Okay,
So
I
that
just wanted to
line is
ask because
blank.
it's on the agenda.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. So we have a motion, we have it seconded. Other questions that we have? No. Roll call vote, please.
Director Lau Lancaster,
Yes.
Director Maury,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Walker,
Yes.
Director Wall,
Yes.
President Buckles.
Yes. Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
That is
Matt.
the legal step you needed to take, so congratulations on that. If you, board members, have questions that come up after this, you're definitely welcome, and you should ask those questions. You can direct those through John. John, if you have questions, as you see more emails and documents coming around in the coming days, certainly you should ask questions as well. And then we will talk once again later, probably closer to the winter time, about the possibility of the 10 million, or does it need to be 10 million, et cetera, next year. So we'll have another discussion about that later. And if the board is ever, I know there's some new people on the board. It's been a while since I've physically been there. I'm not suggesting that you want me to come there, or that you want to listen to me talk for 2 hours. But if the board does want to have a work session, just to kind of talk more globally about how does this stuff work, how can you borrow from other sources, how do property tax levies work, all of that stuff, I'm more than happy to find a time, sometime maybe this summer when things have quieted down for most of us, to come out and have a work session about that, if you want. If you don't, that's
I think
perfectly
we'd
fine
welcome
too.
that, Matt. Thank you very much for your
Yep.
time, but I think we'd welcome that in the future.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, bye.
I just want to thank everybody for, this was a whole extra step. Like, we did it twice. So I just want to thank you, John, for going through that, because it did work out really well, so.
It worked out well, so appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we need to award the bid Exhibit 602.1, a very favorable bid, so.
Make a motion to award the bid for the Linn-Mar High School Extension renovation project to John
Zeidig.
Unzeidig Construction for a base bid of $1,085,000.
Second.
Motion by Britt, second by Katie. Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We go to new business now, and we need to set a public hearing.
Make a motion to set a public hearing at 5 o'clock PM on May 20th in the boardroom of the Learning Resource Center regarding the amended certified budget for fiscal year 2024.
Motion by Rachel, second by Melissa. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We need to set another public hearing, please.
Motion to set a public hearing at 5 o'clock PM on May 20th in the boardroom of the Learning Resource Center regarding the amended 2024-25 school year calendar.
Second.
Motion by Laura, second by Katie. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Transportation Department Agreement.
Motion to approve a 3% total package increase for the Transportation Department staff for fiscal year 2024-25.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Rachel. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Fundraising request.
Make a motion to approve the fundraising request as presented in Exhibit 704.1.
Second.
Motion by Rachel, second by Laura. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve open enrollment request as presented.
Second.
By Katie, second by Laura. Exciting times. Questions?
It's a good deal.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Oh, there it is.
Motion by Melissa, second by Rachel. Just a couple comments. We have 2 retirees in the group,
Congratulations.
Doug Forbes and Judy Gammerdinger. Appreciate your service. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
To the calendar.
Get to our calendar. We have a senior recognition night tonight, awards on Wednesday, another board visit, 9 a.m. at Novak. That's a makeup, so it might not be on your schedule. Do the city council. Any other questions that we have? Here, Marion City Council, June the 6th.
I'll do that.
Rachel? Thank you. When we get to June 20th, as we've talked about, May 20th, we will have a board meeting, also a closed section, so it'll be a longer evening.
Say that again, Barry?
What's that?
May 20th meeting, there's a closed session, so it'll be longer.
Sorry, yeah. Okay, anything else for the good of the board? Communications?
Is the Compass graduation celebration, is that one encouraged for us to attend? Sometimes they
I'll get my act together. Yes, if you can attend, that's great. It'll be in the gym honoring the Compass students that have graduated this year.
This one here.
Yeah, here.
Okay. 6:13.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Britt, second by
Rachel.
Rachel. All in favor say aye.